Anin, Bonjour, Minogajeb. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Happy New Year. Happy 2025. I would like to take this opportunity to call a meeting to order at 9:12 a.m. And our spiritual advisor is not here this morning, so we will do a moment of silence for our invocation. Miigwech, can you hear us? Jeff or anybody online? Just want to make sure you can hear us. Can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Just want to make sure because we just want to make sure it runs smoothly. Okay, next we'll have roll call, please.
Kathy Chavers.
Here.
Tara Gishik.
Here.
Shane Drift. Perry Drift.
Ninsha Mapapaya.
Robert Moyer.
Here.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to wait for a minute. Shane's trying to get his email up here with our agenda and items.
Anybody writing 24 yet?
Yes, I am. I opened the wrong one. Okay. I went into Nikki. Yeah. Oh, we got it? All right. Okay. Next we have approval of the agenda. Miranda?
I don't have any additions.
Okay.
I need to add a article or an addition to the Rtc meeting agenda regarding the MCT TEC amendment, Article 10, which calls for me as a representative to officially submit documentation to the Secretary Treasurer to file with the TEC, MCT TEC Committee under Article 10 of the Constitution. Thank you.
Okay. I would also like to add at the end, after Miranda, announcement. And Shane, we can put you right after Dan? Okay. Okay, any other additions? Changes? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the agenda with those additions?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Perry. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Robert. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried. Next, we have December 4, 2024, meeting minutes. Any questions on the meeting minutes?
I just have one small correction. Invocation done by Vern Adams, change it to N.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Typo on invocation done by. Okay. Any other questions or corrections? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the December 4, 2024 meeting minutes with that correction in that typo?
Move to approve.
Moved by Tara. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Shane. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried. And December 18, 2024 meeting minutes are not ready, so do we have a motion to table them?
Table.
Motion by Tara to table the December 18, 2024 meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Robert. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried. Next, we have the consent agenda, and I will read it. First item is RFP selection of David Farmer for Pineview Home Rehab and Materials List, 400. Authorizing Cathy and Tara to sign letter to DHS Grants in regard to criminal charges that involved improper use of grant funds, 400. GTAC Letter and authorizing Cathy to sign, 400. Resolution number 55-2025, ARPA SLFRF Funds to purchase trucks and snowplows, 400. Resolution number 56-2025, amending resolution number 24-2025 to allocate additional ARPA SLFRF funds for improvement of IT infrastructure on Vermilion Sector, 400. And that is the consent agenda. Any comments?
Yes. Under letter B, authorizing Cathy and Tara to sign letter to DHS Grants in regard to criminal charges that involve improper use of grant funds. Have we heard any official word back from DHS, Dan or Kim? And now, when we file for other grants as a tribal government, do we have to submit this notification to them as well?
Good morning, Kim.
Good morning. As we do what's called like an internal control checklist when they are applying for grants, for the past couple of years, there's a section, it says, do you know or suspect of any misuse or fraud? We have to check that, and we had a different generic letter that we've been submitting, and we have to do that for 3 years.
For how long?
3 years.
3 years? And then after that 3 years, do we need to do anything else to show that, if they want to ask what happened, what the outcome was, do we have to disclose that?
I'm thinking I'm going to defer to Jeff on this for more legal reasons.
Okay. Jeff, did you catch that?
Yeah, I heard you, Shane. I think after that 3-year period, it would just depend on the grant requirements. So certainly if there were questions on the application or, other disclosures that were required, then we would do that. If it was resolved and, there wasn't a affirmative disclosure requirement, then they wouldn't need to. You could always proactively do it, but it would just be grant specific at that point, I think.
Now, my next question after that is that if a granting agency denies us a grant, do they have to disclose why? Anybody?
Typically, I can give it a shot, Shane. Typically, the usually the answer is yes, in the sense that they'll, if it's a competitive grant, most federal and state grants these days offer some limited form of feedback about, maybe there wasn't points in certain areas or whatever reasons. So usually you can get that information. It depends a little bit on the grant, but usually you can get feedback.
No, with that, this question goes directly to Dan. Now, with these grant funds that have been misappropriated, did we lose these grants?
Good morning, Dan.
Good morning. No, nothing has been lost to date, and we haven't received any correspondence indicating that we need to repay or do any other repayment or anything like that that I'm aware of. I don't believe Kim has received anything either, because she typically will communicate directly with me if there's something that's adverse, and we haven't seen anything to date.
I think that if you do receive official notification from that grant, any of those granting agencies, that you inform the council as soon as possible, all of us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move.
Moved by Shane, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Robert. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried. Next we have Crystal Royer, discussion on ALICE, which is Asset Limited Income Constrained Employee.
We don't see her on the
Oh,
meeting.
she's not on. Okay, well, we'll move on then. Okay, next we have Jenna Lehti, MOU for Tribal Observers Program at Northmet. Good morning, Jenna.
Morning, can you hear me? See me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Do you want me to share my screen and share the MOU, or do you guys have a copy of it?
Hang on, we're trying to get to our copy. Hang on. I believe we have a copy in our packets.
Perfect. So you guys did already see this, I think, in November. So it's giving the observers on site over at the Northmet site. And there was some confusion around how they would be hired, so worked with Kim and got that fixed. And then a couple other things that we worked out, and then Jeff added some comments from Shane around the treaty area. So I think everybody that we've worked with on the boy sport side is good with the version that it is right now.
Okay, Jenna, so what you're looking for is an MOU for Tribal Observers Program at Northmet. And this would be people that would go out, like, for example, you took us out to the maple sugaring site.
Yep.
The council and Northmet. And, you know, we were talking about historical sites before and all other types of things that we need to have tribal observers. And I know that, as an example, the Fond du Lac Band has tribal monitors, they call them, for their construction projects for NAGPRA, or looking for any type of artifacts or anything that comes up. So is this something that you're looking for here too as well with these observers, Jenna, or as far as like cultural sites and artifacts and everything?
Yeah, so it's kind of just like the entry point to get tribal members and voice board on site to just be a part of it, so that the tribe can feel comfortable and ultimately give feedback too, to make sure that the project is aware of like what they should be aware of and handling things the right way, and making sure that the tribes have an opportunity to provide input as well. into the project to make it a better project. So we'll start with training. We're going to do training with dirt divers. Once we get folks from Voice Fort selected, then dirt divers will come in. They'll do a training, and then they'll be out there. So we'll have NTS, which is the contractor that we currently use to do a lot of our monitoring. And then we'll have the observers, and then dirt divers will be kind of the third party between the two. So talking about what permits do we have, what monitoring are we doing to support those permits, how is the monitoring being done, just kind of that intermediary until the folks in Voice Fort fully understand and feel comfortable themselves in understanding what we're doing. And then how Voice Fort wants to move forward from there too, I think is to be determined.
Okay, good. Any questions for Jenna?
Yes, quite a few of them actually. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Now, underneath this process, and first of all, thank you for offering this program to train in our band members to do that. Now, with this process, would the Voice Fort TIPO officer be able to come in and observe the actual work when you guys actually start doing the work?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm in pretty continual conversation with Jalen. I've also met Randy. Randy's actually going to come on site, I think, next week or the week after and get a tour of the site. So I bombard Jalen and now Randy with stuff all the time to come on site and be a part of. It's pretty much an open door. I mean, they can come on site and be a part of and ask questions of pretty much any part of what we're doing right now.
And then, with that process, now let's say they do find something, who do they report to specifically?
I think the MOU says that the observers can come to the council. Let's see. Yeah, it says they can immediately communicate concerns to the Voice Fort TIPO and the Voice Fort Council, who shall coordinate internally and communicate with New Range to address said concerns in a meaningful and timely fashion as appropriate.
Okay, and then if they do actually find something in that process, will you guys be halting work or whatever?
Yeah, I think there's in that same, I think it's number 10 in the MOU, talks about that we have to follow state and federal laws, and I think that's all part of our permitting anyway. Is to follow all the state laws.
And then because it's within the 1854 treaty area, has Grand Portage and also Fond du Lac been invited to do this?
Yeah, yep. So it's an open door for all three of the tribes. The same time that we sent an invitation to start building this observer program to Voice Fort, we also sent it to Grand Portage and Fond du Lac. So, but that invitation remains open. So if they want to at any time have observers come on site, we're definitely open to that.
Okay, and now this question goes to Jeff. Any legal concerns with the band's sovereignty or the 1854 treaty area and treaty rights?
With the additions that were made on the last revision, I don't have any concerns, Shane. Specifically, a couple things, if you remember, based on the last discussion that we added. One, notice was going to go to the TIPO, but also the council. So under this MOU, any identification of remains, cultural properties, and sacred objects and things like that, the council has to be notified immediately. And so that gives, the band the ability to, assert its rights under tribal, state, and federal law pretty meaningfully. This agreement doesn't waive any immunity. We've explicitly indicated that within the agreement as well. And I think importantly, it also doesn't provide consent by the band to any of New Range's activities necessarily, whether that be permitting or, other extractive activities. The MOU is not deemed like a consent to any of that, and the MOU expressly says that. And then finally, there's a specific acknowledgement of the activities occurring within the 1854 ceded territory and the existence of those treaty rights. So I think overall, particularly with, the most recent revisions, I think the MOU is in pretty good shape.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Jenna?
I have one question.
Go ahead, Miranda.
Jenna, the second paragraph of the MOU has the effective dates of October XX 2024 and December 31, 2025. Will that effective date be today then, once approved by council?
I can defer to Jeff if he thinks that how he wants to do that. The end date will stay the same. We'll run it through 2025, and then we can talk about extending it after that point. But Jeff, should that date change to today?
Was there any monitoring that happened that needed to be reimbursed prior to this date?
Nope.
Okay, then I would recommend changing that effective date to today. And then I would just recommend that council, if you motion to approve this, that you motion to approve subject to that revision.
Okay, and then the second question I have is the sentence right after that in the second paragraph, the total amount of reimbursable expenses described herein shall not exceed XX $1,000. What is that amount?
Oh yeah. Let me check internally. All expenses are being reimbursed through us. But I don't know the not exceed amount. I have to talk to my accountant and then get back to you guys.
So do we want to table this until we get it rewritten?
I think the exceeded amount should be on there. This MOU should be complete. So we should wait for that amount.
I make a motion to table.
Jenna, we'll table this until that can get resolved in the MOU.
Okay, sounds good.
And we can bring it to the next meeting or whenever it gets completed.
As soon as you have the final copy, go ahead and send it back to us, to Miranda, and then we'll review it, because that's the only change, and then we can just possibly, can we continue it with a poll so she can get that going? All right. One more thing I'd like you to add on there, just in case. I see there's only one signature, so just make sure you have on there, see how in the consent agenda we had authorizing, so-and-so to sign, authorizing Cathy to sign on behalf of the band.
Okay, so myself, Tanis, and then Cathy and you. Where it says voice
No,
for?
just Cathy.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion. Oh, sorry, Jenna. We have a motion to table made by Shane. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Tara. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried. Thank you, Jenna.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. Have a good day.
Big Witch. Have a good day. Okay, next we have Tony Wakeham up. Approval for 2025 Net Lake powwows, fundraising activities, raffles, lunch, fundraisers. Good morning, Tony. Turn your mic on. Red. There you go.
It's the fundraising activities, and we're just lumping all three powwows together instead of coming to you guys for each powwow in 2025. I don't know what we're raffling. We do 50-50s. We have people that randomly donate items to raffle, and the raffles do offset some of the costs for the powwows. And we use the money during the weekend for spot dances. So we have cash on hand to do the spot dances. Otherwise, a lot of people are coming out of pocket to do spot dances.
So this will cover the year 2025 for all the powwows, so they don't have to keep coming back, is what you're saying?
Yes.
To get these fundraisers, because we know you do the 50-50, Vermilion does the buttons, and so it's to encompass all of that. Maybe what might be helpful is if you know what you're doing ahead of time, is just maybe give a copy of some of the fundraising things to the executive director, just for documentation.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions for Tony?
I have a question. This is just Net Lakeside
powwows, correct?
It is just at Lake.
Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying that. If no other questions, I'll call for a motion to approve the 2025 Net Lake Powwows fundraising activities, raffles, and lunch fundraisers.
Move to approve.
Moved by Tara, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Perry. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, silent, motion carried. Good job, Tony. Thank you.
Thank yous.
Have a good day. Okay, next we have Angela Wright and Jeff Holt, resolution number 58-2025, adopting VAWA 22 and human trafficking revisions to the Bois Forte Tribal Code, and also resolution number 59-2025, adopting revisions to the Bois Forte Elder Justice Code. Okay, Angela and Jeff. Morning, Jeff.
Morning. Is Angela there or no?
She is not, Jeff.
She's not, Jeff.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Didn't want to. I think I can handle presenting here. So we've got a couple of code revisions that went out to public comment recently. I'll start with the VAWA 2022. Just give a summary of that as a reminder to council. So as council knows, the VAWA reauthorization in 2013 for the first time recognized tribes' inherent right to prosecute non-native offenders for a limited amount of crimes. When that law was passed back in 2013, it was specifically limited basically to certain domestic violence related crimes that tribes could prosecute non-native offenders for, as well as violations of orders for protection. So it was a really limited subset of crimes, and there was a variety of requirements that came with being able to exercise that jurisdiction. Bois Forte did amend its tribal code to exercise that VAWA jurisdiction. And this revision now before you is kind of an extension of that jurisdiction. In 2022, Congress, under its VAWA reauthorization, expanded tribes' ability to prosecute non-native offenders for additional crimes. And I think the language around this is important, that Congress was not granting tribes the right to do this. Congress was recognizing tribes' inherent and existing rights to already be able to do this, right? Tribes have the inherent right to do this. Congressional limitations have made that a barrier over time, but this is a recognition of tribes' inherent right. So the revisions before you for the VAWA 2022 and human trafficking revisions essentially expand the tribe's jurisdiction under VAWA 2022 to be able to prosecute non-native offenders for additional crimes. So in addition to domestic violence and dating violence under VAWA 2013, which remain in effect, under these revisions, the band can prosecute non-native offenders for child violence crimes, sexual violence crimes, sex trafficking, stalking, assault of band officials, and obstruction of justice. So it's not all crimes, but it's a relatively significant expansion of jurisdiction to prosecute non-native offenders. The other thing that this does is it gets rid of a limitation on the band's jurisdiction that existed before. Under VAWA 2013, in order to prosecute non-native offenders, there needed to be, under the federal statute, sufficient ties that the defendant had to the band. Under VAWA 2022, that requirement no longer is in place. And so the band could prosecute an individual regardless of that individual's ties to the band, so to speak. That is sort of the really high level revisions to VAWA 2022. I guess the only other thing I would mention is that this has been a kind of a long process over the last year and a half, spearheaded by Michael Murphy and Joy Parker in our office. who have worked with Angela, Victim Services, ICWA, the tribal courts, tribal law enforcement to get feedback and make sure that there's a, really robust feedback from tribal departments that have key roles in implementing this. And then also this was put out to public comment, authorized by council for the past couple of months. And my understanding is there weren't any comments received. So the next step was to bring it before you for adoption, if that's what you want to do.
Thank you, Jeff. Do we have any comments on the VAWA 22 and human trafficking revisions to the tribal code?
Yes, a couple of questions right off the bat is that, now with this, if the tribal court was going to prosecute underneath this, could the state and or federal government prosecute as well, and it would not be counted as double jeopardy?
That's correct, because there's separate sovereigns. There wouldn't be a double jeopardy violation.
Then on the flip side, if the state or federal government wasn't going to prosecute, could the tribe push for a prosecution?
Yep, if it was within these jurisdictional provisions and the crimes, definitely.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I would like to call for a motion to approve resolution number 58-2025, adopting VAWA 22 and human trafficking revisions to the Bois Forte Tribal Code.
Move.
Motion made by Shane. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Robert. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried. Okay, next, Jeff, we have resolution 59-2025, adopting revisions to the Bois Forte Elder Code. Elder Justice Code.
Yes, so this was a project that kind of ran on the same track as the VAWA 2022 revisions. A lot of coordination with community health specifically on this code, and HHS, Terry Morrison, in addition to the tribal court, tribal law enforcement, and those that would be involved in implementing this code. So I'll give just kind of a high level summary as well of what these revisions are. So essentially, this was a grant funded project to really look at the band's tribal, elder, and vulnerable adult provisions in its code and make sure that there was really sufficient protections in place for elders and vulnerable adults under tribal law. So what this does is it takes the existing elder and vulnerable adult code and provides under kind of best practices additional protections for elders and vulnerable adults. And I'll just provide a little summary that was in the public comment memo on this. So these revisions ensure that band officials and loved ones are equipped with the tools they need to combat abuse of elders and vulnerable adults. So to that end, they add and expand what constitutes abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation under these codes. They also broaden the definition of what a caretaker is. Instead of necessarily having that person be a family member, it's broadened to a person that stands in a position of trust. So recognizing that caretakers can be, direct family members, but also in some circumstances, not necessarily that family member as well. It could be another individual. The revisions expand the crime of abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation of an elder or vulnerable adult to be able to be committed by any person instead of just a caretaker. They really beef up these revisions, interagency procedures for reporting and communication and response and investigation of elder abuse crimes. The revisions set out procedures the band can use to petition for protective services or protective placement for a vulnerable adult or elder. Under the court's supervision, they provide for elder and vulnerable adult civil protection orders if needed to be able to protect those individuals from someone who has committed abuse or exploitation against them. And finally, there's the development of a guardianship process for elders and vulnerable adults under a court supervised process when there is a need, for example, for those individuals to receive assistance to make health or financial decisions regarding their affairs. And that process would be, subject to pretty strict and serious court supervision, similar to what might be available through other tribes or even the state. So I know that's a lot, but that is sort of the high level summary of the revisions to this code as well. And again, a lot of coordination with tribal departments, Terry, Angela, tribal courts, tribal law enforcement, in developing the revisions, out to public comment as well. And my understanding is that there weren't any comments received on this code either.
Jeff, this is Kathy, I just have a question. I see that there's a guardianship clause in here where we can appoint a guardian in tribal court for a vulnerable adult. I know that when I was involved with being the guardian over my mother, that when we went to court for that guardianship, she also had legal representation for her side versus my side. So is that incorporated in here as well?
Yeah, so the provisions definitely allow for representation of all individuals, and I think there's probably some kind of administrative questions in whether it makes sense to just do automatic appointments of like a public defender for these types of positions as well, but definitely all parties involved have the ability to be represented.
Okay, that answered my question. Thank you. Any other questions on the Bois Forte Elder Justice Code revisions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the Bois Forte Elder Justice Code under Resolution 59-2025?
Move.
Moved by Shane. Is there a second?
Second.
You guys going like rock, paper, scissors or what?
I saw a move.
Seconded by Perry. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, silent, motion carried. Okay, thank you, Jeff. Good job.
Yep. Thanks,
Melissa
Council.
too, or Angela too, and Melissa and everybody that was involved. Those are some very important codes. So miigwech. Next, we have Mr. Dan Rabideau with a request to rescind resolutions 63-2020 and 35-2021. Good morning, Dan, again. Oop.
As you are aware, I'm trying to do some cleanup and housekeeping of some records that exist, and resolution 63-2020 establishes and creates a separate HHS board.
Okay.
And right now we are utilizing the council as the HHS board on a monthly basis. So all I'm doing in the meantime is saying we have an active resolution, let's rescind it because we're not operating that way. And then there's a supplemental resolution 35-2021 that addresses a bylaw thing in which the HHS board was given the authority to do hiring and terminations. And this 35-2021 kept that authority with the council. So they're two resolutions that are tied together. And I'm suggesting and recommending that we rescind both of those because we're not following them today, and we continue to operate with the council being the HHS board until such time as we were to make a different decision. And at this time, I don't have a recommendation to do so. So in discussions with Miranda, this was step one, which is let's take that off the books so that we're not out of compliance with what is stated previously through the council. And until such time as we were to do something different. So it's just basically a housekeeping item to say, hey, we're not following this. Let's make sure we clean it up and rescind what's on the books as of right now.
Okay. Any questions for Dan?
Regarding the salaries and stuff like that, and then hiring, we're just going to keep using the HR process and as normal?
Correct. And that's currently what we're doing as well.
Okay. That's all I got.
Any other questions for Dan?
Just one. When will we ever, go to the board to actually, not council and have a HHS board?
But, that's a great question. I think it really comes down to what is the preference of the council itself. I mean, if the council wants to consider relinquishing and designating some authority to a different group, I think that's a discussion to be had. From an administrative standpoint, the concern that I would have is if we don't properly delegate authority to a separate group, then it just adds more work. And what I mean by that is if the authority isn't given, then basically it's an advisory group of people that need to be educated, trained, and brought to whatever level of understanding in how HHS operates, and then to have to come back to the council and do a same or similar thing, we're basically duplicating efforts. Trying to determine what the best makeup is of an HHS board where you have individuals that have experience in health, have experience in health operations, that's where I think there's a little bit of, for me, a gap in what's currently on the books doesn't necessarily fulfill that, but at the same time has some value in, particularly when there are elder band members that were listed to be on the board. I think there's value in that. But value from the perspective of giving input related to service offerings or how we deliver service and those types of things. But they may or may not have any experience in actual health operations. So to give the authority and decision-making power to individuals that don't have that, I think it's a little bit dicey. So I don't have a straightforward answer for you on that, Tara. I think it's something that we can explore. If it's the desire of the council, then I think the council, I would be open to what are your suggestions, what would you like to see, and help provide some guidance for me as to what I can bring back in terms of a design, in terms of what type of expertise do you desire, and then I can try to determine, where could we find that, what would be the best fit, bring back a proposal, or is it something that I've been looking into the OIG's requirements for having a board. And the requirement really is it's an oversight group, and there's different ways we can do it. And one of the other options would be if you have your traditional tribal government council meetings, such as we're having today, and you typically have an executive session today, is there an opportunity where we could just piggyback and do a separate HHS and build it all into one, so we're not having separate meetings and we're not having separate designated days? I'm just brainstorming ideas now because I know your time is valuable, and I don't know how you would like me to try to solve for that, but certainly open for discussion. At this time, I don't have a direct answer on when or if, but certainly if the council gives me the directive or states that they would like to see that, then that will become a priority for me and I'll start to explore it.
So with us rescinding these resolutions, we have the processes, whatever new resolutions already in place that we're running under for a board, or do we need to clarify that in a new resolution?
That's a good question, Robert. Right now we are utilizing the council as your elected official duties to fulfill the responsibilities of oversight of HHS, and we're okay in how we're doing that. Again, from a housekeeping standpoint, if you would like Jeff and I to formalize that in a resolution so that we've got it documented, we certainly can go back and do that. It wouldn't take much work.
Okay, the reason I asked that was because it was always my understanding, and I don't know if I'm wrong here, but that it was the band's goal to have a separate board. And I remember when I first got on, you weren't the HHS director, but the previous one, that's what we directed her to do. And I guess there was an attempt at a board years before I was on council, so I'm just wondering why it hasn't come into fruition and what the problem is, you know.
Yeah, again, another good question. I don't know exactly all the history other than pulling notes, but it looks like COVID became a little bit of a disruptor when it came to the HHS board formalizing things. I know that when Luke and I brought this to your attention several months ago, there was concerns about how the makeup of the board as it stood on the resolution was done. And not having, the executive director in place who, was ultimately my boss, and he had some thoughts and ideas. His transition then, disrupted this as well. For me, I like things more black and white, and because we have a resolution that's out there that we aren't following, puts us in a little bit of that gray area, and not having that next step ready. I just wanted to take step one, which was, all right, let's pull this off the books so that, we aren't in violation of something that that is out there. And then step two, if you would like, based on this current council as well as past ones, for me to go and work with Miranda or whomever is the next executive director. I'm happy to do that. I think there's some value in having another board if it's designed right, and that's I just haven't put the time and energy into design so that I could present something to you that you're comfortable with. And, that's my role, is to make sure that I'm meeting your needs as a council with whatever that design is. And I sensed from our conversations previously that the current design in place you weren't comfortable with. There was a lot of gaps and a lot of holes, and therefore I haven't solved for that at this point. And again, step one is rescind this. If step two is go back to the drawing board and present something to us, like I said, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, sounds good. I'm thinking maybe we have old records or old things that was tried before, so he doesn't have to recreate the wheel. He sees the old attempts and stuff, and so then you have that history. So then you can figure out, how you can make this board happen when it's failed in the past. So I'm just thinking, I might be talking only from my own point of view, but I think that's what the council wants, is a separate board, because, we should be doing other things than constantly overseeing. Although we like to see you every Thursday of the month, that's great, but I just think that's one of the goals that we should probably move forward once you get some other things cleared out. And
great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Just as an FYI, Dan is already meeting monthly with the council regarding HHS, which is a great thing to do, because there's a lot going on within the HHS. It's one of the largest divisions, but setting up that monthly meeting would actually coincide with this as well, with the board. So sounds good. Good discussion. Any other questions or comments for Dan? If not, do we have a motion to rescind resolutions 63, 2020 and 35-2021. Moved by Tara. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Shane. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you all.
Miigwech, good job.
Miigwech.
Okay, Shane, you're up.
Good morning. As a District 1 representative, I take my job duties and responsibilities very seriously. And this morning, I asked to meet with the council, the whole council, also the executive director. And I informed them that I'd be asking to put this onto the RTC meeting agenda. And this involves MCT Constitution. That the censure process can only be initiated by a TEC member against another TEC member. So with that being said, I'm going to be submitting documents to Tara because she is our Secretary Treasurer. She's also a TEC member. For her to submit to the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe TEC Committee for its consideration. So with that, I will go ahead and submit the documentation to Tara. I know that band members are going to want to know what it's about. I don't know if I can disclose that at this time. Jeff?
Disclose the basis of the request, Shane? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
I guess, I don't think there's a reason not to, and I guess unless it would include any confidential or data privacy covered information, I guess that would be the only caveat. So I don't.
Is it okay to disclose basically just the general information of what was, there was a violation of the resolution where a council member cannot get involved in a court case?
Yeah, I think you could disclose the general basis of it again, as long as it didn't include data privacy ordinance information.
Okay, that's as furthest I will share on it. I know band members are going to want to know exactly the specifics, but that will be forthcoming. So I asked everybody, please let the process play out, and just be patient. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Okay, next I have an announcement. And this isn't how I was going to do this, but in light of our meeting this morning, I didn't want it to be misconstrued in any way. But as of January 31st, 2025, I am retiring from chairwoman of the Boys Fort Band. I have worked for the Boys Fort Band for 47 years. My entire life has been spent working in Net Lake and for Boys Fort. My only off-reservation job was waitressing at Patton's when I was 16 years old. And I'm very proud to be working with the band. I realize that there was just an election held, and I'm only half of the year into a 4-year term. However, I think certain events have happened since the election and also since December that have prompted me to retire. And I've always been a person that has told people that you need to take care of yourself first before you take care of anybody else. Well, I've been taking care of everybody else, but I haven't been taking care of myself. And I've dedicated my life to helping people, my family, my friends, my colleagues. And it's time I took another road to take care of myself. And for my mental well-being, I need to retire. That doesn't mean my work is done. If I have to, I will work off the reservation. But 47 years working with the Bois Forte Band has been a delight in my life. And it's kind of hard because it's almost a century of work. And very proud of the councils I've worked with, the staff I've worked with. We've got great people here. We really do. They work hard. The services that we provide are top-notch. And so I just want to say chi miigwech to everybody. To those that voted for me in the election, I hope you understand. But this council the work will continue with or without me, you know? So I just want to say chi miigwech to everybody. I was going to announce it tomorrow, but I've done it today. And I will miss everybody, but I will still be around. I'll be an elder at home, taking care of my dogs. But I will also be hopefully advocating for tribal people on the outside. We've made great strides at Bois Forte with all the councils we've had. And I'm very proud to say I'm from Bois Forte because Bois Forte has been leading in a lot of things. And I'm very proud of the accomplishments we've done and how this reservation has come so far. I mean, I remember when the roads weren't paved, when there weren't any sidewalks, when we only had one little store. I mean, we've grown so big. But I just want you all to know that I appreciate the support and the love of people from Bois Forte and outside. To my fellow colleagues out there, I've built great relationships and friendships, and those will continue. And so I just wanted to say thank you, chi miigwech, and I will be conducting my duties up until January 31st. And then after that, I will be retired. So thank you all. And with that, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Motion to adjourn made by Shane. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tara. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silence. Motion carried. Thank you.